I would have made that whole assumption on that initial text that this person was treating me or talking to me in a certain way. Text always is misinterpreted, regardless of who you are and who that person is and how you interpret text.
Let's start this thing, fool.
Hello, I'm Sam.
And I'm Amelia.
Welcome back to Us the Duo podcast. A podcast where we aim to build a better mindset for better relationships.
Yeah, and today we're going to be talking about relationships with phones and what we think about how that is impacting us and our socialization and relationship with others.
Yeah.
So we'll start off with a big question. Would you feel uneasy if you left a home without your phone?
Of course I would.
Would you really?
Yeah, because to me, my phone is kind of like my wallet. And unfortunately, with how everything is going in terms of technology, your smartphone is essentially your phone. Your wallet.
Your smartphone is your phone. Very smart there.
Yeah, very good, very good.
Yeah. For me, I think I actually would not care if I didn't bring a phone, and I would not care if I don't touch my phone, and I don't connect my phone with any cards or wallets or anything, so I really could not care less, to be honest.
Yeah. No, it's good that you've got that disconnect.
Yeah, and I've done it many times. Like, I think I've gone grocery shopping with you a few times. Like, obviously, because you have a wallet, there's less to worry about. But it's just the fact that I can walk out and forget my phone, and you're like, "Do you need to get it?" I'm like, "No, not really. I don't really need it."
Yeah, because you rely on me, fool.
No, but that's a wallet. Your wallet, not your phone. Wallet's a different question. But in saying that, I have left the house without my wallet and gone out and realized I cannot pay.
Yes.
All right. Well, from that, how long do you think it would take you before you check your phone? Or how long do you think you'll last without having to check your phone?
I don't know, I think the longest that I have not checked my phone, maybe like an hour.
That's pretty short.
Yeah, it is.
I think I can last a whole day. What I would say is generally, I think if I'm with people or I'm out or I'm talking to you, I would not touch my phone, and I'm okay with not touching my phone. I think on the flip side, if I'm working, this sounds really bad and I hope no one at work is listening to this. If I'm working, sometimes you're waiting for me design. I'm like waiting for something to export or waiting for something to save, and that rendering time takes time. So I'm like, I actually have free time to check my phone, like scroll on socials for a little bit. But apart from that, I genuinely don't touch my phone all that much unless like maybe I'm like really tired that day and I'm trying to wind down. This is the worst way to wind down, but I do scroll on my phone for a little bit, like giving myself that little bit of time to just lie on the couch and just chill.
I'm a little different. My work is phone
Yeah, I guess that makes
driven.
sense.
So I'm always on the phone, touching my phone. That's just the nature of my work. Yes, there are times where I will, like you, where it's like your downtime, if you want to call it that. And you just check your socials, I guess. Watch a, YouTube video, something like that. Yeah.
I think the other reason what kind of deters me from using my phone is I actually don't do that, like, watching YouTube on my phone or watching things. I actually am a person who really just loves desktops. So I think if there's a phase where the desktop or the computer is ever to be wiped out, I'd be the one and only one that's sad, because I just think it's just so much more usable. You can do so many things on there and it's just easier to see everything. Whereas on a phone, coming from a user UX UI perspective where we're trying to design mobile apps, I hate mobile responsive things. Not hate, but I just find it harder to use and see everything at a glance and use it properly,
Yeah.
as opposed to using it on a desktop.
Yeah, and I can understand because I'm the same thing. I would prefer using a desktop. Likewise, it's just more feasible, user-friendly. You can do a lot more with a bigger screen. Obviously, there's the right time and place for that. And that's why smartphones come handy, because it's portable. You can do it anywhere and use it anywhere you want.
Well, what I've actually realized though, I think we're only the one of very fair few people who still have a computer. I know a lot of my friends and people that I know that either have a tablet, have an iPad, or they just use their phone and they haven't touched a PC in years.
Really?
A lot of the people that I know are like that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, my friends still use desktops or laptops. So, I mean, I've heard people who just don't even use a computer at all,
Mm.
but I don't know how they do it because it's just on their phone.
It's just too hard for me. I'm just like
Yeah.
everything is just squished
It
into
just
one
hurts
place.
my eyes. Like you just gotta. Like,
And your hand, I think it also like it hurts my hand after a while. Like it makes me feel like I get carpal tunnel after a while. Like just
Yeah,
the scrolling
'cause
and
you're
the
holding it
holding,
like this,
you know,
like-
like the claw.
yeah, like
But would you like to take a wild guess? This is US stats for this one. A wild guess for people who check their phones within 5 minutes of receiving a notification.
within 5 minutes.
Yeah, the percentage.
Shit, 60%.
Almost. It's actually 70% of US people check their phones within the first 5 minutes of getting a notification.
That's like almost everyone.
Yeah, but I think it's just sad that you have to be so glued to your phone. For me, I don't give a shit. Like if I see a notification, sometimes my phone shows up and you're like, hey, you got a notification. I'm like, yeah, cool. I'll check later. Like I just really don't like the thought that I'm bounded by something.
Yeah,
I think that's the reason why I don't really care. I get it. Sometimes it might be an urgent thing or whatever it is, but if it's actually urgent, they'll call you,
yeah.
right?
But it goes to show you that everyone relies on smartphones. You know what I mean? And 70% is quite a big
Yeah.
coverage of people.
Yeah, that's a lot. And I'm just thinking, like, to me, it's like if someone really genuinely wanted to reach out to catch up, whatever, and I didn't reply, they'd reach out, you know?
Yeah.
And I do the same. Like, if I'm like wanting to catch up with someone, if they haven't responded in a while and I've texted them, I'll be like, hey, what's going on? So, but you know, each to their own. Another one is 79% of people actually check their phone as soon as they wake up. And this is Australian stats. That's also some really high.
Yeah, I'm guilty
numbers.
for that too. And it's not because I want to check my phone. I check it because it's time, what time it is, if my alarm went off, or if the alarm went off, that's when I touch my phone. So I mean, like, look, yeah, the phone is used for many different things.
Yeah, but in terms of checking your phone, aside from alarm, do you scroll on socials?
No, I don't.
I think you do. I've seen you.
Well, okay, it depends on if it's a work day. No, I get up straight away.
Lies. I come in and you're
On the
like
weekends,
scrolling.
different story. On the weekends, I'll check my phone, but okay, and then I jump on the socials.
Yeah, with this one, I also don't check. And it's not because, like, I think if I was able to, I probably would. But, like, my eyes get really dry in the morning and I'm, like, just waking up. You know, the eyes when you just
Yeah.
wake up is a bit blurry. So I can't really see it
It's
anyway.
like sandpaper.
Yeah, I'll just look at the time and that's pretty much it, which helps because then I'm not bounded to lie there and just check what's happening on social. So, yeah, I'm not part of that statistics. So let's look at our stats for a little bit and see how it stacks across the Aussie average.
Damn.
So there's this stat. Aussies spend almost 17 years in a lifetime staring at their phones. And then we're sinking an average of about 5.5 hours into screen time each day.
That's pretty hectic.
Pretty high. But before we did this, we actually looked at our own screen time. Did you want to share where yours is?
Yeah. So screen time. I didn't even know that was a function on iPhone, which I think you had to activate it. But anyways, mine was 2 hours and 38 minutes
Per day?
Average daily.
It's not bad, actually. That's pretty good. So mine was actually skewed because this week, I know that I played. This week, I spent more time on my phone because I recently downloaded Candy Crush.
Well, that's when you fucked up.
I just randomly decided to play it, so I have probably an extra hour of screen time. But my average is about 3 hours, so just a little bit more than yours. And I thought this was high, but looking at the Aussie stats for people who are millennials, it says the millennials spend average 6.7 hours
That's
a day.
crazy, dude.
Dude, what the hell? Like a work hour is 7.5 hours. So what are they doing? Like spending their whole work time on their phone?
Pretty much eat, shit, sleep on the phone.
Rave, repeat?
Pretty much, mate. Rave, repeat.
Yeah. So I found that really interesting. But yeah, like we were discussing, it could be because people do use their phones
Yeah.
more to look at videos, research, work off their phones
Yeah.
to mobile and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff
because
that
I know there
influence.
are some people out there who use their phones as a computer. Some people don't have computers, so they just use their phones to do their day to day browsing, watching, that sort of stuff. So,
Yeah. So I just thought this was interesting to compare and see how we stack against others. From that though, do you actually think that we're too glued to our phones? Like
yeah, I
as a
think
society?
Yeah, I think with the way technology is going, smartphones and the evolution of smartphones, et cetera, it's not the ideal way.
It's inevitable that we will transition more and more into the digital world, but I don't think it's a good or a bad thing. I think it's just how we're using it is not great because people are forgetting how to socialize. People are forgetting how to, reconnect in a more wholesome way, I guess. Like it's not a bad thing that you catch up with someone through text, but every now and then just being able to socialize and catching up face to face or even just knowing how to socialize with other people just in general, you can kind of see that having a downward trend. Like you can see the younger generations and how they work, their customer service. You can tell that the way that they interact is a lot different to how we would have done if we were in the same working the same jobs.
Yeah. So essentially, the technology now and how it works has affected the way people socialize and how they interact
Mm.
and how to deal with that interaction as well.
Yeah, and there's also such a big rise in terms of like what's it, online trolls and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But the thing is, like, don't quote me on this. From what I can see and what I've been reading up on, if these online trolls were to be taken out of the web space and to be put in real life, they also would not know how to socialize because they just know that they're protected by that barrier where no one knows who they are, no one can see what they are, and they can just do whatever they want. But if you take them into real life, they also would not know what to do.
Yeah. The keyboard warriors, mate. That's what they
Yeah.
are.
But throwing in some more stats just so that this can help our conversation. I think this was really interesting. The total number of mobile connections in Australia has reached nearly 31.9 million in 2022.
Yeah.
So that's
That's big.
crazy. 31 million. And I think I saw something else where the amount of phones, like the actual phones itself, has actually outnumbered the actual humans living in Australia.
Yeah. And look, like you said, it's just a natural progression to evolution of life. And a lot of people, when they talk about like smartphones and technology, they always refer back to COVID being the growth of smartphones because obviously we were all under a certain restriction. People couldn't face to face, they couldn't do this and that. So a lot of people had to heavily rely on technology, which is understandable. It's the situation at that time, but that's changed now. We're back to normality, so to speak. So I think a lot of people are now more heavily reliant on technology as opposed to the natural way of socializing.
Yeah, there's definitely its pros. Like, I think there's definitely good things about digital. Talking to people overseas or your families are overseas that you don't get to see all the
Yeah, it's more
time.
convenient.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
convenience of that. I think those things are definitely a good thing. But yeah, definitely you can see that decline in socialization and just knowing really good communication skills.
Yeah.
I think
And
that's definitely taken an impact.
yeah, for sure. What I was gonna say that you can definitely tell with the education system in general is heavily reliant on technology as well.
Yeah, I actually realized that after just seeing my sister because she's a lot younger than me. Didn't realize that they get like a whole laptop and they get like a tablet. And I was just like, what the hell? I didn't get any of
Yeah,
this
we
in
had
my.
books,
Yeah.
old school pen to paper.
They even write notes in their iPads and stuff. I'm like, did not get that
Yeah, and
luxury.
I mean, some people see it as a negative, some people don't. And I mean, it depends on your own opinion, but they say you're losing a lot of skill when it comes to technology
Mm.
being put into place. Like your ability to write cursively or to be able to just use that and hone that skill.
Well, actually, my sister doesn't know how to touch type.
Yeah.
That's something I was actually surprised about because when we went to school, everything was like about learning how to touch type,
Yeah.
being able to do that. And it's actually a good skill to learn. But because they're on tablets, they're on mobiles and all that kind of
It's all
stuff.
about swiping.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
They don't know how to touch type.
Yeah. And that's a really good skill to have too. And I remember we had tests to fucking touch type and it's like how many words can you smash out in like a minute or something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, when it comes to real world and reality of corporate work, you do need a touch type. You need to be able to have that skill and hone that skill.
Do you think is a transferable skill even like work life today,
What's a transferable skill?
like the touch typing?
Hell yeah.
Mm.
Corporate work life is all about being able to data enter, or basic entry level work is admin and data entry to some extent, right? So you're going to be able to hone the skill of touch typing and data inputting, which basically you use a keyboard and a mouse. Yeah. So you need to have that skill to efficiently do that and speed.
But like not just on the younger generations though, I actually see people our age or our friends in our generation who actually are being impacted on like the socialization thing. Like I talk to my friends and a lot of them, pretty much 90% of them that I know would say that they rather text than call. And I remember seeing a YouTube where they go out and you know those ones where they interview people on the streets or something like that, or
Yeah,
do
yeah,
like
yeah.
those sit down interview things. And most of them would actually say that they rather text than call. But I rather call because to me, you get things done way faster. If you really need something, you can just call them. And if they're busy, then you text. You're like, okay, hey, I needed you for this. Or like,
Yeah.
did you know about this? Like, it really depends on the situation. Like, I'm not going to barge in and just call just because I want to annoy you, but you just get things done. You get your answer. And plus, you can actually hear like the tone of voice and like have a proper conversation. Whereas through text, you can mistranslate what they're saying or the tone of voice of what they're saying.
For me, I am somewhat guilty of that too. I normally text like whenever I'm asking for something, but unless it's something that's urgent and I need to answer now, I will call that person directly. But most cases, it's just easier, more convenient to just text, and then whoever you're texting, it's in their convenience to just reply
Yeah.
in text.
I'm not saying I don't text. Like if it's something where I know that I can get that anytime or whatever it is, I'm happy to text. But it's just like when you know you need something and then someone's like, oh, I don't want to call them. That's what I'm talking about. People
Yeah.
like when you know you can get an answer or you need something and they're like, oh, I don't want to call. To me, I'm just like, I don't see an issue in calling. Like if you really need something, you want to know something, why stop just because you don't want to call and then you don't get your answer? And then you don't get your thing done because you didn't want to make a call.
Yeah.
And it's mostly because of that is due to they just feel a bit of that social anxiety, I guess, through the phone. And if you get that, that translates through to if you go and see someone face to face, then you're still going to get that social anxiety. So I think there's like this impact where it's sort of disassociating people with the socialization in real life now.
And that is a problem though, right? It's just like people are starting to become less confident in themselves. That lack of confidence affects their ability to make that step forward or move forward to ask a question or to get an answer. And that is a big problem.
Yeah. Because, like, sometimes you just need to ask the question and it's not really that scary and just getting it done, you know?
Yeah. 100%.
From that, we did do a bit of reading, and there's actually this lady whose name is Sherry Turkle. I think it's Sherry Turkle. And she's an MIT professor who wrote a book called Reclaiming Conversations. So I just found the conversation. So I think someone did an interview on this website. I'll link it below. And I did an interview with her, and I think she studies this whole conversation thing and just the cell phone and the impacts of socialization, which is exactly what we're talking about. And one of the interview sections that I found really interesting that the person was asking is if we know that the phones and just the digital world and just the whole texting and thing is actually impacting us in terms of interaction so much, why are we so reluctant to put down our phones? And she gave a few points, which I can actually see her points and see why. So she was saying, like, the phones give us a sense of safety, that in 3 points, it will make you feel that you will never be alone. Yeah, I think that's really true because, say, you're out at a party or you're out at an event and you feel bored or you feel awkward because you haven't really made a conversation with someone. You can easily just whip out your phone and just start texting your friends or scroll on social media so that people will see that you're busy. But because you do that, you don't be in the moment, you're not present. And for me, remembering back as me as a kid just being able to sit there and not do anything or sit there and be still and actually just observe what's happening around me. I think that's something that we're actually all missing these days, to just be able to sit there and just watch and observe, like people watching or whatever it is. Because everyone is just on their phone. Even at Starbucks, people probably like scrolling on their phone rather than looking out the window.
And that's actually a good point because I'm trying to think back in the 90s or even the early 2000s, like me being a kid, roaming the streets on my skateboard or me fucking BMX bike. I just think, technology wasn't really big at that time. It was, but not as
Well,
evolutionized
even
as
if
it
you had a
was.
phone back then, you can't really scroll social. You just play
Yeah.
snakes on your phone or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. Like, I mean, the only thing that was entertaining me was my flashy lights on my phone, on my Nokia.
Yeah, but like in a sense though, do you remember back in those days when you were out with your family at like a family gathering and you were bored and you had nothing to do? What were you doing then?
I just sat there.
Yeah, same.
I just sat there and just fucking be with the wind, one with the wind, and enjoy whatever that's happening.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like that one, never having to be alone and never have to feel bored. That's something that she said is the reason why. It's a sense of safety that the phone gives you to never feel those things again. But
Mm,
that's actually a problem because it's all part of, like, I think she said something is like a part of building your brain, and it's like something that affects your just learning and picking up on things. And it's the type of thing that affects your brain because now you can't be bored. Like if you're bored, then you don't know what to do. You can't sit still and you just feel like you need to do something. I think to me, I can see her points and I feel like it's true. And then the other one is with the phones, you can put your attention to anywhere you want to put it. So that is also true. So again, leaning back onto being bored, so you're at a party, not much is going on, and you thought that this party was gonna be wild, but you've got till like 2 hours till your mom picks you up or something like that. You can go on your phone and just put your attention in there because again, you got nothing
'cause you
else to do.
can, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just picking and choosing where you want to put your focus to, or even just having a catch up with a few friends and your phone goes off. 1 second, your attention's listening on the conversation, and then next second, because your phone went off, you want to check it. And then now you're choosing whether you want to listen to your friend or you want to listen to what's talking to you on your phone.
Yeah. It takes you away from being that. I guess it comes back to the same thing, right? Being present and in that moment. What she was saying in terms of those 3 points, it is true in terms of it's you being bored essentially, right? And then you can make opportunities with that phone because the phone gives you so many different varieties of things to do. You can play games, you can search, scroll through social media, you can watch YouTube, you can do so much with it. So being able to restrict it and have like, I guess, stop yourself from using it all the time and force yourself to get out of that.
Yeah, and just being okay with feeling a little bit bored or feeling a bit awkward at that little moment because these things will all pass. But, just being able to be okay with it and sit through it, sometimes it's a good thing. It's not, you don't have to fill every empty space with something. Another thing that I would kind of relate it to, if you're not really in design, it's kind of hard to understand, but it's just like having white space in your design. So imagine you're designing a poster and you wanting to fill out every single corner, every single space, every single empty gap with words or with an image. That poster is going to be so overfilled. You're so just overwhelmed.
It's
And
all
I think
cluttered.
that
Yeah.
that's what would happen with your brain too if you're just filling every single blank moment with something like an activity or even scrolling. Even though scrolling may seem like it's such a chill event, but you're still absorbing something because you're looking at things even if you're not thinking of anything. So I think just having a bit of white space, giving yourself just some downtime or like a breather for your brain to just not having to absorb things all the time, I think it'll be good for your brain too. So in a nutshell, she just explained it as with the phones, feel like that means they don't have to 100% commit themselves to something. And if they can avoid like a situation or fear of being bored, fear of being awkward, whatever fear it is, they can just avoid it.
There's a right time and right place to use their phone too, right? But obviously not having to rely on your phone all the single time or every single time, sorry. Just dialing it back in terms of the brain thing, the cognitive function in the brain. Like you're challenging your brain to think of alternative ways to keep yourself busy.
Yeah, but it doesn't have, that's the thing, like you don't have to be busy. You don't have to keep yourself busy. I think that's the thing that people don't think about. is that it's actually okay that you have nothing going on to really just sit there and be present. Like as simple as going back to that Starbucks example, sitting at the window, having your drink, and actually just looking outside and just seeing what the weather's like. Maybe you start to pick up on the new trends of clothing that everyone's starting to wear, whatever it is, and just seeing what's happening and actually truly just being in that moment.
Yeah. I guess this is a side question for you, but it seems like nowadays a lot of parents they give their kids their phone or their tablet for the sole reason to shut them up.
Mm.
What's your thoughts on that? Because essentially that is what they're doing, right? Is to shut them up.
I don't know. I don't think I'm in a place to say or really comment on that. But in terms of my personal opinion, I can see why parents would do that. I get it. Like, there's so many parents that get so tired. They don't really have much sleep. They've got to like cook and clean and look after a baby and feed them every few hours and all that. It is tiring. Like, it's a tiring job.
Yeah.
And to just keep them entertained just so that you can get that 5 to 10 minutes of peace, like I can see why they give them the phone, but I think just having them getting so used to having the phone is something that I don't agree with. And we did talk about this with Hyper Beaches in their episode, and yeah, it is something that I would try my best not to do. Like, I'm not going to give my full guarantee that I wouldn't do it if I was a parent, but I would try my best not to, because I would want them to go through and experience life similar to how I did it and just really go outside and play.
Yeah.
Like, go inside and explore. I don't know. Me as a kid, no matter how bored I got, I always found something that I can entertain myself with. Most of the times I just tried things myself. When I was in preschool, I moved to a new preschool. I had no friends, and I like never once I was like, oh, I'm bored, I've got nothing to do. I just went outside to the playground, saw a swing, did not know how to use a swing. And I truly went out there, explored for myself, and like, how do I use this swing? I just taught myself how to go on a swing. So just simple things like that, just simple exploration, I think is just what I would love to teach my future kids to do.
Yeah. And for me, I used to just play with little cars, like car toys. And back then they used to sell these, I don't know if they still do, but they have like rugs,
Oh, with the little car tracks on it?
car tracks. Yeah. And I used to just sit there and play with my cars on those. And yeah, it was mostly cars, like die cast cars and toys and stuff like that. And then outside of that, it was going out, like going outside, riding a bike, scooter, and being in the sun. And I don't know, like I used to be into games as well as a kid, but I always used to balance it as well for some reason. Like naturally, I would be like, okay, it's time to game, or okay, let's go out and ride my scooter or something like that. Even if it was by myself, I still would go out there and ride.
Yeah, so I think that's the biggest part that's missing these days. Like, I'm sure there are kids who still do it or parents who still have their kids do that. But a lot of people or a lot of kids aren't doing that anymore. Like, they're so good with using the phone. Like, I've seen 3 or 4 years olds who actually know how to swipe left and right and go back and all that kind of stuff and minimize a screen and close a window. I'm just like, wow, like a 3-year-old knows how to do that on a phone.
Yeah.
And like, it's good. Like, it means that they're learning really fast, but at the same time, that's the one thing that they fall back on when they're bored.
Yeah. Heavily relying on that.
Yeah, want the phone. So I think just bringing in what you said, just some of that balance, even just introducing them more to be outside. And if you go outside, play, explore, you can come back and maybe have the phone for like half an hour.
Yeah, of course.
And another thing, I think I briefly touched on it, relying on text and using things online and just communicating online. I think there's a lot of miscommunication that can happen that way. And that's the reason why I like calling sometimes if I want to get to know something or catch up with someone. Calling is important to me because you can hear their tone of voice, their excitement or their disappointment, whatever it is. I feel like it's just the closest step if you really can't catch up with them face to face, like go to a cafe, have brunch or something. The calling part is something that's like a closest step. I'm going to say I don't do this enough, but I'm saying like if I wanted to catch up or wanted to get to know something or ask a question, I definitely would go call rather than text. But there's just so much misinterpretation through text. And I find that now, I think I'm actually transitioning my thought in terms of working from home and also going into the office, because there's some things where what I've realized recently is when I want to ask someone their opinion or questions or something, like they're busy too. So they'd probably reply with like 2 words, 3 words. And then my perception may instantly be like, oh, maybe it's not that great, even though they're like, oh yeah, it looks good, but it's like, that's it. And you're like, oh, did I really think that? Like, I don't know because I haven't seen their facial expressions. I can't hear their tone of voice. Like, I don't really know how true this, yeah, this looks good answer is. So I think I'm kind of on both ends now in terms of working from home and in the office because of that misinterpretation through text.
Yeah, and I had a recent experience in terms of misinterpreting a text, and it is 100% true in the fact of sometimes people when they type or text, that's just the way they text. But there's no like you said, you can't read their demeanor. You don't know what their intent is. You don't know what their purpose is. You don't know their mood, the tone, etc., etc. So when you were to read that, depending on how you perceive that message, it could be a rude message or it could be a message that means something totally different. With that recent experience, I interpreted it as quite rude, just in terms of the formatting of the sentences and how that sentence got to the end point. So basically, I checked the person and I said, hey, look, what are you fucking saying? Because from how I'm reading it, this is my interpretation of it. And that person basically said, look, that's not my intent. This is actually what I meant.
Hmm.
And it's just a massive miscommunication, misunderstanding. If I didn't actually approach the person and say, hey, this is how I interpreted the text, I would have made that whole assumption on that initial text that this person was treating me or talking to me in a certain way. Text always is misinterpreted, regardless of who you are and who that person is and how you interpret text. So I do agree with you in terms of it's just fucking better to give the person a call and just ask them how it is.
And even like going back like many, many years ago when I was living at home and you were living at your own house, I think me texting you, sometimes I got frustrated because your replies are quite short. So I'd give you a little background of what happened on my day or like this happened and blah, blah, blah. And you'd reply with lol or like, haha. And I'm like, okay, so I just wrote this massive text or this massive update. And like usually I do these because I love conversations, right? Like the reason why I like is just like these connection things is just to catch up, talk about your day and like share experience and things that happen throughout the day. I like poured my heart out and you're just like, lol. I'm like, okay, like, is that all you really care about? Like, did you even really read what I said kind of thing?
Yeah.
And I remember I told you that. I was like, can you give me more than just a lol or like a haha or whatever? Sometimes you just leave me on red. I'm like, okay.
Left you on red, bitch.
Yeah. For that, I think it took me a while to get used to and for you to even try and expand on just that too. Cause like I know that you do want to listen on my day. Like it's not that you don't because we've talked about it, but it's just through text. That's how you do it. You just say lol. I think for us both, for a certain amount, like you can text for a little bit, but it kind of gets annoying. Like all the mistyping, by having to backspace and then type again, it gets annoying. And like you just can't be bothered after a while. So I
Yeah.
understand why sometimes it becomes like a short answer.
Yeah.
One thing I forgot to mention about Sherry Turkle and her study, she also said that using the phone, like people feel that using the phone for confrontations is a lot easier. Like people feel like it's not so confrontational because you can do it through text and then at the same time, if you type something you don't like it, you can kind of backspace and like remove it and think about it again. Whereas if you're doing it face to face, it eliminates all that tension. And she says that for people, that's another form of safety that they get. And this one I really get because I find that for me, this one I feel like there is a benefit for me because I'm a person as if I say something, sometimes I don't know how to word it properly and it may come out the wrong way. And a lot of people may find that I may have said something too abruptly or like too rudely. So in this way, I can actually have a think about what I want to say, have a reflect on what's happening on both sides, like their side, my point of view, and just think of their point so that I'm not like blaming or something like that. So I can actually confront them but still be respectful. And it has actually helped me in that way in many different ways as well. So I can see why this can help.
I'm the opposite. I'm the kind of person that will just say shit as it is. So texting can be a benefit for me because then I can actually text or write out what I need to write and then think about, hang on, am I writing this in the right way where someone's not going to misunderstand where I'm coming from? So I can see the other side of it.
Yeah, no, I think either way, I would still end up having the conversation face to face. But I think it's
Mm,
just good to open the conversation and be like, hey, this thing didn't sit well with me, or what you said today was rude. I felt this way, this way, this way, this way. And then, like, let's catch up and continue this conversation. I think it kind of helps me in a way where I don't come out and be like, what the hell was this? Or like start accusing or whatever
Yeah.
it is. Just gives me time to reflect on the situation and then start the conversation.
Yeah. No, that makes a good point, actually.
It's a good and a bad thing, but it also, if everyone is only falling on texting to resolve confrontation, it may not be a good thing. But if it helps you start the conversation, like, it's a pro, just to relieve a bit of that tension, especially like, for example, if two people have an argument, sometimes you need that breather space.
Yeah.
So coming to the end part, what are some tips that you would share in terms of having better or healthier screen time, or even help you reduce some of your screen time?
What I would probably implement is implementing some balance to, I guess, using the system, like using technology.
But how would you do that?
Balance is in knowing when to use it and when to not use it.
Yeah.
So having like a time or a set place where you go, okay, this is a time to not use it. So for an example, if you're eating dinner, something that we always talk about.
Listen to your advice, boy.
and I'm guilty of this too. Sometimes when you eat dinner, you just check your phone, blah, blah, blah. So eating dinner, strict dinner, no phones, purely just being in the moment, eating dinner with your other half or with your friends, and just enjoy that moment. That is an example of one, right? And a lot of people, and I've seen this all the time, people who eat generally have their phone with them. So it's about having that balance and telling yourself, hey, this is a moment for us, or moment to just eat and enjoy that moment.
Yeah, and I think some people, I'm not speaking for them, but I tend to see that people do that because, again, awkward silence. Like, you're
Yeah.
eating together and that silence is like getting a bit long and starting to feel a bit weird. But I think at the same time, that awkward silence is something that you kind of bring on yourself. You feel like it's awkward. But what I've heard from other people who have told me this is, it's only awkward if you make it awkward.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly right. Yeah.
So, like, to me, when we sit there and eat and say we actually don't have our phones, that silence, to me, I don't feel awkward.
Yeah, I don't feel awkward.
Yeah, it just feels fine. And then, like, it gives us time to actually truly enjoy the food and then start talking about something when we actually think of something. Again, you don't have to fill every empty space with something in there.
Yeah. And it is pretty funny because I've seen moments where people are at dinners and it's dead silent, awkward as fuck.
And then they make it really awkward.
And they make it even more awkward because they're not talking, or they'll just pull out their phone and be like, oh.
No, it's not the pulling out the phone part. Like, it's when you make people truly put down their phones and you're like, okay, no one touch their phones, and then we're eating in silence. You can definitely tell the people who are not used to the silence.
Yeah.
They start like wiggling, or like you can see the eyes looking around, or like someone awkward laughing and stuff like that. You can definitely tell that these people don't really sit alone or sit in silence a lot.
Yeah. So what's your...
Mine was actually gonna be the same, like setting boundaries in terms of where we shouldn't have phones and stuff, which we have done for ourselves. For us, it's like dinner, or when we're watching a movie together, try to like not use a phone. And yeah, when we're having conversation, like, the thing that I hate most is when you're trying to have a conversation and someone just whips out their phone. Like, for me, if I have to really use my phone, I'll be like, sorry. Like, I'll explain. I'll always explain why I'm picking up my phone. I won't just pick it up while they're mid talking and then like scroll. So if I have to, I'd be like, sorry, I just really need to get this, or reply to this text message on the phone, or like, oh, sorry, I forgot to set something as a reminder. Let me just put that, and then I'll put it away. But another one that I read up, which I thought was actually really good, is what you called setting sacred spaces. So similar concept to setting the boundaries is there are certain areas where you don't bring your phone in. So a lot of people have recommended not to bring the phone in the bedroom, for example, so that, one, you don't hear the notifications, and two, you don't wake up having to pick up your phone.
Yeah, yeah.
I think some people also said lounge room, which I guess kind of makes sense in a way, like if you're watching TV or just enjoying family time, dinner tables, like that kind of stuff. It makes sense.
Yeah, I think you've got to figure that boundary, or that creating a space for what best suits you.
Yeah, so you don't have to set boundaries if you can't, like if it's not feasible, but I think it might be good to try, like for example, your bedroom. I think that might be a good one because another thing that affects your sleep apparently is the screen, like the blue screen or
Yeah, just a bright light, I think it
yeah, the
is.
bright light.
Yeah, and I'm one of those, like, if I have light splashing in my face, even though my eyes is freaking closed, I can't sleep, I can't focus. Until that thing fucks off, then I'm like, yep, ready to snooze.
Mm. If there's another thing, I think this one's more like for the extreme. Like if you really just feel like you're overwhelmed, you have too much going on, your anxiety levels are high, your stress levels are high, just have a detox. Like just have a day where you really just don't look at your phone, or have a weekend where you don't have look at your phone. Go
Mm,
out for a hike or go out to see nature, whatever it is. You'd be amazed how
a mage. Nice, you're a
that's
mage.
how good it is.
It's got powers now, guys, a
You'll be
mage.
how you'll be how you'll be amazed how refreshed you feel when you come back, because reconnecting with nature, catching up with friends, and truly resetting.
Yeah, I've had a few friends who've done that, detox from social media. Initially, it was very, very hard for them, but separating themselves from the whole social aspect of things, it really gets you to focus on yourself and what's true to you rather than watching looking at social
I guess
media
none of us can
and
talk
following
today.
and following other people and what they're doing in their life. Like, who gives a fuck? You do you do your do. You do your do. You do your thing and I do my thing. So
Yeah.
I think maybe if it's to the extreme, you could probably do like a detox of just fuck off all the social media.
Another one is just really, in terms of the socialization and reconnecting with people, is just having, board game nights or something like that, where it's all away from technology. Board games are always fun. Like we have those,
Yeah.
we've been having those recently. And
We need to do it
I
more.
would say that those are the best nights that I have, like the best fun, because you can't be on your phone and play at the same time. Like
Yeah.
you can, but it's just annoying, or like you just can't focus on one thing. Because if you miss it, then you miss like who's the resistance or who's the saboteur.
Yeah.
And just truly be present and be present with all your friends
Yeah.
around.
I think just having that regular
Catch up.
meetups or catch ups, that because I know for me back in the day, we used to play PlayStation with a group of like family friends. I don't know if you guys remember PlayStation 1 used to have like these little, what's it, the L block connects. So you can connect like up to 8 different like controllers. So you can do those things with your friends, like with your mates. And it's such a good social thing. Old school tech, even like playing games, PlayStation 2, that just gets people together and it's just such a good vibe. And I think that's what we lack nowadays is we don't see each other enough physically that it's no longer there.
Yeah, and I think it's also because I feel like there's such a convenience, or I can just chat to them online, or I can just message them later. But it's just remembering to actually reconnect physically is also just as important.
Yeah, and understanding that people are busy as they get older, more commitments, etc., etc. But it's also important to actually make the time as well to do those things. And yeah, if you're in a long-term relationship, cool, you've got your partner, your wife, or whatever it is as your primary focus, but you also need friends as well. So, your friends are important to that social aspect. So don't forget about that.
Yeah, very important. Wise words there.
Yeah.
And speaking of phones, we're actually recording on a phone right now, so we're going to turn that right off.
Well, don't stay off your phones. Just easy up.
Easy up, eh? And with that comes to the end of our episode. So hopefully that taught you a little something. These are some interesting stats, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, play more board games.
Yeah, do more socials, PlayStation 1 with the boys, FIFA 2000 something, I don't remember. But yeah, do it because it's good shit.
All right. Bye.
All right, peace out.